Every year, the United States poultry industry processes an astonishing 9 billion chickens. That is roughly 25 million birds every single day, or nearly 300 chickens slaughtered every single second. To put this massive scale into perspective, the average American now consumes over 104 pounds of chicken annually, almost 10 times the amount eaten in the 1930s, and nearly twice the current per capita consumption of beef or pork. But if you walk into any American supermarket, you will quickly notice that this mountain of meat is not distributed equally. The absolute crown jewel of the poultry aisle, occupying the most shelf space and commanding the highest price tag, is a very specific cut: the boneless, skinless chicken breast. This preference is a striking culinary paradox. To culinary professionals and traditional cooks around the world, the chicken breast is often considered the least desirable part of the bird. Lacking fat, skin, and bones, it easily overcooks, turning dry, stringy, and virtually tasteless. In contrast, the dark meat of the thigh and drumstick, rich in fat, gelatin, and connective tissue, is moist, flavorful, and forgiving. Yet, in America, the soft, white, and neutral breast is prized above all else, while dark meat is frequently treated as an unwanted byproduct. This deep-seated national obsession is not a natural evolution of human taste. Instead, it is the result of a massive mid-century dietary panic, a corporate revolution in industrial food processing, and a multi-billion-dollar geopolitical trade deal that reshaped global agriculture. To understand how the chicken breast conquered the American plate, we must first look back to the early 20th century, when poultry was not a staple food, but a rare luxury. In the 1920s, chickens were raised primarily for their eggs. A chicken was only slaughtered for meat when it was too old to lay eggs, resulting in tough, stringy birds that had to be stewed for hours. Eating chicken was reserved for special occasions, typically a Sunday family dinner. During this era, the idea of buying just a chicken breast did not exist. Chickens were sold whole, often with the head, feet, and internal organs still attached. The consumer had to purchase the entire animal and perform the butchery at home. This began to change in the 1940s, driven by intense industrialization. During the Second World War, the United States government requisitioned vast quantities of beef and pork for soldiers overseas, leaving domestic consumers with chicken as one of the few unrationed meats. Poultry producers seized this opportunity, rapidly scaling up production. By the late 1940s, the industry launched the Chicken of Tomorrow contest, a national breeding competition backed by the USDA and major supermarkets. The goal was to engineer a new kind of chicken, one that grew faster, used less feed, and crucially, possessed massive, fleshy breasts that would yield more white meat. The winner of this contest, a cross between the New Hampshire and Cornish strains, became the genetic blueprint for the modern broiler chicken. But genetics alone did not make the chicken breast a superstar. The real catalyst was a public health crisis that emerged in the 1970s. For decades, American heart disease rates had been climbing alarmingly. In response, the United States Senate convened a committee on nutrition, leading to the landmark 1977 McGovern Report, followed by the official dietary guidelines for Americans in 1980. These government documents issued a stern warning to the public: reduce your intake of saturated fat and cholesterol to protect your heart. This warning triggered a national panic. Almost overnight, red meats like beef and pork, loaded with saturated fats, were cast as dietary villains. Americans desperately sought a clean, lean source of protein that would satisfy their hunger without clogging their arteries. In this climate of fear, the chicken breast was marketed as the ultimate health food. Because it contains less than 1/3 of the fat found in beef, and significantly less fat than dark chicken meat, it was elevated to the status of a medical miracle. It became the centerpiece of the modern American diet, championed by doctors, fitness advocates, and weight loss programs alike. During this era of health consciousness, Americans treated saturated fat like sand in the engine of their coronary arteries. They believed that even a small amount of animal fat would build up and seize the machine. In their minds, the chicken breast was the ultimate pure lubricant, a clean, fat-free protein that allowed their biological engine to run smoothly without leaving any harmful residue. However, recommending a food is one thing. Getting busy, working Americans to cook it is another. This is where the second major shift occurred. The convenience revolution. As more women entered the workforce in the 1980 decade, the time available for home meal preparation collapsed. The traditional method of buying a whole chicken and spending 30 minutes hacking it apart on a cutting board became incompatible with modern life. Food companies realized that to sell more chicken, they had to eliminate the labor. In the early 1980s, poultry processing giants like Tyson Foods invested heavily in industrial automation. They redesigned their factories from slaughterhouses into advanced processing centers. Instead of shipping whole birds to grocery stores, they began doing the butchery themselves, introducing pre-packaged, pre-cut chicken parts. The pinnacle of this effort was the introduction of the boneless, skinless chicken breast. By removing the bone, the skin, and the fat, processors transformed the chicken breast from an organic piece of an animal into a standardized, ready-to-cook consumer product. It was clean, uniform, and required zero preparation. For the busy consumer, it could be taken straight from the plastic tray, tossed into a pan, and cooked in 10 minutes. This product design represents the ultimate commoditization of meat. The boneless, skinless chicken breast is like the Lego block of the kitchen. Industrial processing stripped away all the messy, organic complexity of the animal, the bones, the skin, the fat, and the cartilage, to leave behind a sterile, uniform unit of protein. It was no longer a part of a bird. It was a standardized raw material that could be plugged into any recipe without friction. This standardization aligned perfectly with another unique characteristic of American culinary culture: the love of water-soluble sauces. Unlike cultures that value the intrinsic, gamey flavor of meat, the modern American palate prefers meat to be a neutral vehicle for external seasonings. Because the chicken breast is extremely low in fat and myoglobin, it has a very mild, almost non-existent flavor. To the American consumer, this lack of flavor is not a defect, but a major feature. The chicken breast acts as a blank canvas. On its own, it has no strong personality, which means it can be painted with any corporate flavor or seasoning the cook desires. It can become Italian chicken parmesan, Mexican chicken fajitas, or American barbecue chicken, absorbing whatever sauce is poured over it. This versatility made it incredibly popular for families with picky eaters, as it could adapt to any taste. The food industry capitalized on this neutrality by launching a massive wave of processed products. In 1983, McDonald's introduced the Chicken McNugget nationwide. It was a massive success, but its marketing relied heavily on a specific promise. It was made with 100% white meat. This marketing campaign cemented a powerful association in the minds of American consumers. White meat meant high quality, purity, and health, while dark meat was associated with cheapness, grease, and waste. A generation of children grew up eating nuggets and tenders, developing a lifelong aversion to bones, skin, and dark meat. This extreme preference for white meat created a major economic crisis for American chicken producers. A chicken is a biological organism, not an industrial factory. You cannot breed a bird that is made entirely of breasts. For every pound of white breast meat harvested, a chicken producer also gets a pound of dark thigh and drumstick meat. As American demand for chicken breasts skyrocketed, supermarkets were flooded with an unsellable mountain of dark meat. The price of chicken breast rose, while the price of thighs and drumsticks plummeted to near zero. To survive, the American poultry industry had to find a way to export this surplus dark meat. The solution came in the early 1990s, at the intersection of global trade and international diplomacy. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the Russian Federation suffered from hyperinflation and severe food shortages. The Russian economy was in ruins, and the population was desperate for affordable protein. Recognizing an opportunity, President George H.W. Bush negotiated a massive trade agreement to export American dark chicken meat to Russia. Because Russian consumers actually preferred the richer flavor of dark meat and needed cheap food, the trade was highly successful. The imported American chicken leg quarters became a staple of the Russian diet, affectionately known in Russia as noshki busha, or Bush's legs. At its peak in the mid-90s decade, Russia was importing nearly 1 million tons of American dark meat annually, making it the single largest market for United States poultry. This massive export pipeline created an invisible subsidy for American domestic consumers. By selling millions of tons of dark meat to Russia, China, and Eastern Europe, American poultry companies were able to cover their basic production costs. The profits from these exports allowed them to keep the price of chicken breast relatively stable in American supermarkets, despite the intense domestic demand. Without the Russian and global appetite for dark meat, the boneless, skinless chicken breast would have become an expensive luxury item in the United States. Today, the global flow of poultry remains a delicate balancing act. When trade tensions rise or geopolitical conflicts break out, such as when Russia banned American food imports in response to sanctions, the U.S. poultry market experiences immediate shocks. The domestic surplus of dark meat grows, forcing producers to find new markets in Africa, Latin America, or Asia, or divert the meat into low-value pet food. Ultimately, the dominance of the chicken breast in America is a testament to how modern society can reshape both nature and culture to fit the demands of industrial efficiency. From the genetic breeding rooms of the 1940s, to the government health guidelines of the 1970s, and finally to the global shipping lanes of the 1990s, the chicken breast was systematically engineered to become the perfect meat. It is a food designed for speed, convenience, and dietary peace of mind. But as we consume this highly standardized protein, we are also consuming the legacy of a global system that turned a living bird into an optimized industrial commodity, leaving the rich, traditional flavors of the rest of the animal behind.